Okay, so I am doing my first book review on YouTube, which is kind of cool. And this is going to be my style. We're just going to do it one take, no editing, maximum scuff. So that's going to be fun. I have no notes or anything. I finished the book today and I read it in about a week. So the book is The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. It is the second in a series. I believe there is going to be just three in total. So the first book was called The Sword Catcher. The book, and oh yeah, by the way, spoilers are important, I think, for actually talking about books. So this is your spoiler warning. If you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch the rest of the video. Okay, so this book in particular, I was really looking forward to because the first book I liked. I thought it had good setup, but I also felt like we didn't really get much payoff off of anything. Like, we set up the characters, we set up the relationships, we set up the world. But this book, I will say, paid off on a lot of things. I got a lot of answers that I was looking for. Um, Now I'm more like, okay, we got a lot of answers, and now there's kind of just a bunch of now what, you know, after the truly shocking last 100 pages ish of this book, a lot of stuff happened, a lot of stuff was revealed. To back up a little bit, the world building I found to be very excellent. It is set in a fantasy world. All of our story takes place in a single kingdom or country, however you want to call it. Um, but we do get references to many other countries, which get developed through immigrants from those countries are in our city, Castellane. Or there's of course some political intrigue regarding the prince's marriage to and the kingdom's alliances with other countries, and of course the main antagonists come from the country of Malgacy. Um, to speak of the characters, we follow two protagonists in these books, Kel and Lynn. I found myself more interested in Kel in the first book. The first book is named after him, and a lot of the plot sort of revolves around him. Whereas I found Lynn far more interesting to follow in The Ragpicker King, partially because I think the first book is leading up to this big climactic moment where Lynn announces her status as the goddess. So just to bring it back into the world building, we have all these countries, but we also have this group of people called the Ashkar, which are a people without a home. They are basically scattered all across the world because their country has been destroyed. And so we also have lore in this world as well. You can tell it's my first review because I'm super scatterbrained. But there's all this lore about magic used to be a thing and now it's not, and it is tied to the Ashkar religion and mythology in some way, and we eventually come to find that this religion was likely something that actually happened, and there's this prophetic figure who is referred to mostly as the goddess in the Ashkar religion. But the Ashkar are really interesting because the book also explores their status as a people globally who they have a strange relationship with the concept of home. Ashkar are required to live within a certain subsection of every country that they in which they reside. For example, in Castellane, they are required to live in a place called the Salt. They are required to dress a certain way. They cannot leave the Salt at night. It's a very strange system. It's a system which is inbuilt with prejudice, but at the same time, there's also this long-standing practice of having the counselor to the king always, or the king or queen always being an Ashkar, because there's kind of this superstition that like treating them well brings good fortune. The Ashkar have the unique position of being the only people to still practice magic in this world, although it's sort of like low level healing magic mostly. So, I don't know, we're exploring a lot of concepts of prejudice and like interpeople jealousy and the Ashkar in the country of Malgasi even suffer um, an ethnic cleansing, which is brought about by the ruling class in Malgasi has a we come to find out in the Ragpicker King that they have access to some remnant of magic that no one else has access to, and so they fear losing that power because of the legend of this returned goddess, right? And so that's why they carried out the ethnic cleansing of Ashkar and Malgasi to attempt to snuff out the possibility that there could ever be someone else to gain this power. Um, and I think it's pretty clear to me that the Ashkar are meant to be an allegory for the Jewish people. I'm not Jewish. I don't know very much about Jewish culture, at least not in an intimate sense. But kind of these concepts of being persecuted, being people without home, and making home. There's a line. How can we survive in a strange land, or how can we love our goddess in a strange land, something like that. um, the author takes great care to like really develop the culture of these people, and I think that's really cool. So we even explore the way that Lynn's grandfather Mayesh, the counselor, the way he thinks about sort of giving up his own human desires for like the good of his people, and that's actually a very common theme in the books. We also have, oh my God, I'm so scatterbrained. If we were just talking about like some of the different characters, I already sort of described Lynn's cultural background. She is Ashkar. Um, she is seeking to understand magic not out of a desire for power, but out of a desire to heal her friend. And I think what really makes Lynn's journey interesting in the second book is that she has claimed this birthright that she knows is a lie, um, simply in order to gain access to the knowledge that she might need to heal her friend Miriam. And she knows that the reckoning for her decision will eventually come, and she's facing the possibility of exile from her people. But because Lynn had the bravery to do this, um, she eventually does gain mastery of magic and is able to at least in the eyes of some people, actually prove that she is the reincarnation of the goddess. So I think that's kind of an interesting statement about making your own destiny. I think the concept of prophecy. I'm a Rick Riordan fan. Prophecies are something that are explored very very heavily in his writing. Um, and the idea of like, what does it mean? Like, what is the meaning of fate? Is fate something that we have influence over as humans? And if is that even possible? Could it even still be called fate if that were the case? Or are we just sort of randomly drifting about due to random chance? And I mean, in that case, you could say that we have no agency if the entire universe is chaos, right? So you have kind of these two extremes of everything is preordained, nothing is preordained, everything is random. And then the world where human agency matters is kind of right in the middle. Now I realize I've digressed from the actual book, but I just find that topic very interesting. So I'm glad that this book portrayed prophecy in such a way, as in like the fulfillment of prophecy is something that the main character creates via her own strength of character and her own bravery, and with the support of other people. Um, and it's kind of ambiguous. Like, was her success like fated to happen, or I mean, the plot's not over. She still has to go through some trials, but she did convince the one of the religious leaders of her people that she is in fact the reincarnation of the goddess. In the vein of duty to your people, um, we also have the royalty, in particular Prince Connor, who is the most important non-main character because he is intimately connected between both of our main characters. Kell, the main character who I've talked very little about, is the sword catcher, which is the title of the first book. What I really liked about Kell when they were setting up at the start of the first book, I thought they were doing this normal trope of someone is poor, they're being elevated to a royal status. Maybe it's because they were actually royalty the whole time. Maybe there's some sort of misunderstanding. It's all very bizarre. Kell doesn't really know why it's happening. But the reason that this is happening is because he has a like a visual similarity to Prince Connor, the heir to the throne, and they wish to use him as a body double, which is, a pretty messed up thing to like drag an orphan from the streets and say, hey, we're going to use your life as a shield for someone else. But you kind of see Connor, he's insisting that like whoever they pick, it has to be voluntary, like they're not going to force anyone to this. And through Connor and Kell's relationship, we see that what Connor wanted more than anything was a friend. And he and Kell are unbelievably close throughout both of these books. They've slept side by side every day since they were 8 years old, and I think now they're in their early 20s. Kell knows Connor so intimately because well, he's trained to be able to take Connor's place at social gatherings or at public events, if there's a security risk, essentially. And what I really liked is that I think the author expects us, the reader, to look for resentment in Kell. Resentment from the fact that Connor has been born into privilege and power, and Kell was not. And Kell was sort of plucked out from his life in order to provide a service. But and other characters assume that Kell feels like that, and they try to, for instance, the Ragpicker King, who is not an antagonist per se. He's sort of an anti-hero, we'll say. They assume that Kell has some resentment towards the prince, but the author establishes pretty quickly that she's not going down that route. Kell actually has unwavering loyalty towards Connor, and like I'm not sure you could really call it Stockholm syndrome. Like I don't think it's irrational. I mean, he and Connor have been best friends for many years. Connor has treated him with care and respect. Connor and Kell trust each other implicitly. And I mean, this opportunity is what gave him a life of more than being a street rat. Being a destitute orphan probably otherwise would have turned to a life of crime. So, I think it makes sense that Kell wouldn't um, wouldn't be resentful of Connor. And even though he does lie to Connor a lot over the course of these books, he does so with either the intention um, of protecting him, of wanting to work out a lot of these uh, sort of they're unraveling a mystery of like who has been sabotaging um, the court, who has been blackmailing Connor, who has been killing people, and it's not the same person all the time, right? Um, and so like that does eventually come to a head at the end of the book, the Ragpicker King, excuse me, when there's this big moment where Connor is presented with many pieces of evidence that Kell has been lying to him. Um, so there's that relationship, and then there's also the relationship between Connor and Lynn, which is a pretty slow burn in the first book, but then in the second book, we get a lot more of this exploration of Connor and Lynn. I found their romance um, to be very interesting and exciting at first. What I don't like as much is when we get romances that are like one person wants it and then the other person doesn't, and then it flips, and then it flips again, and then it flips again. Like I just find that to be so stressful. And I think it was it was tough to get through, but ultimately I feel like the changes of mind were chosen pretty well, or rather they were explained and justified. They were timed pretty well. It wasn't like without reason that Connor changed his mind. It wasn't without reason that Lynn changed her mind. Connor and Lynn are both going through um, extremely tumultuous points in their life, especially Lynn, with everything that she's dealing with, attempting to heal her friend, worrying about the first test to prove that she is the goddess. She has this revelation of the phoenix blood that is in the king, right? There's so much going on with Lynn in this book. It's crazy. Um, yeah, I'm trying to see what else do I have to say. Oh yeah, what I really liked about this book was the amount of reveals at the end. We get characters who are around, um, and likable and doing things, and it's like I want more from them. That's true of both the Ragpicker King and of Antonetta. Um, the Ragpicker King, especially, this book is named after him, and he doesn't do much until like the back quarter of the book. He's an important character in the first book for sure because he's kind of the catalyst for Kell. He's the catalyst for a lot of the events that happen in Kell's life, with basically all the complications. He kind of coerces him into this life of investigation and solving mysteries and crime and battle, and essentially begins the cycle of lying to Connor for Kell. So the Ragpicker King is an important character, and he is portrayed, like I said, as an antihero. He has this mysterious identity, but we do learn his name, right? But we don't know like where he came from, what his backstory is. We do have, so I will say a lot of the reveals in this book, you're given the ability to guess them, and it happened for me that I was able to guess a decent amount of them, but only like a little bit before they're actually revealed. So they'll throw out a line that makes you go like, wait, is that what's going on here? Because so for example, with the reveal that that the Ragpicker King is in Ashkar, and that he is Asher, the Maharam's son. I did guess that when they threw out that the Ragpicker King um, had been exiled. I think he said something like that. I feel like that was maybe a bit more heavy-handed than it needed to be in terms of foreshadowing. Because as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like that's clearly what they're setting up. But it is a cool reveal. I do. He did kind of help have this final moment with Lynn of encouraging her, like, "Hey, if you believe in yourself, you can make this prophecy like actually true and be about you." Right. So he did do something at the end, but I don't know if this book should have been named after him. Honestly, like he's a great character. I just wish he did more, I guess. Um, what else? Oh, Prosper Beck. So this was the best reveal in the book. Prosper Beck is someone that we were introduced to in the first book. They were one of the main catalysts for everything going wrong. Basically, they bought up all of Connor's debt. It's normal for the royals to have debt everywhere, but no one's ever really like considered actually buying up their debt all at once and then immediately requesting they repay it. It's just kind of a no one's ever done it. It's kind of a faux pas, right? Um, but Prosper Beck is this mysterious criminal underworld person, and um, they're just like, yeah, Connor, pay up, and this causes the chain of many of the events that lead to the climax of Swordcatcher. And Prosper Beck was always weird because like we see this guy, and the book keeps telling us like he's weird, something's not right here, something's not right here. We never get an answer. And so throughout this whole book, I'm just like, Prosper Beck's popping up here and there, like sending minions to do things or setting up a meeting with Elsabet, the main antagonist. And I'm like, who the hell is Prosper Beck? Like, why are you? Please tell me we get an answer to who Prosper Beck is, right? Um, and we do, and it's actually a very good answer. I haven't talked about Antonetta at all. Antonetta is a character that I do like a lot. I like her as a love interest for Kel. Um, we got some great scenes with her and Kel, especially in the first book, but also in this book. Um, her she kind of plays the role of a female lead, or no, there's Lynn, but she plays the role of kind of like a female character who, how do I put this? Like if you're familiar with like Sansa from Game of Thrones, she plays the role of a character assuming a feminine role in a highly gendered society. So she's often constrained in what she can do, um, especially by her own mother. She is often beholden her entire life to this idea of being um, good marriage material, whatever her marriage prospects are. That's kind of like at the forefront of everything that she's doing, everything people talk about with her. Um, and her story is kind of about being this, you know, gender role given feminine character who wants to break out of that. And she fights back against it in ways that, to Kel, it seems like he's the only one who can actually tell. Basically, she puts on a front, and she to everyone else portrays this picture of a ditzy, unintelligent, easily manipulable woman, but Kel feels that he sees that her own machinations. He feels he understands her for who she really is, and he loves her, and they were childhood sweethearts, but they were not able to be together because of the difference in station. Um, In the second book, I was very confused about what they were doing with Antonetta, because we see her, we get some more scenes with her and Kel. We get this big marriage between her and like an awful man, or this big engagement rather. And we see her, not happy about the marriage, but she wants to go through with it despite um, the awful things that this man is going to do to her, because she wants to gain power, and this is the only way that she can gain her inheritance. Basically, her mother is requiring her to get married to get her inheritance. Um, but anyway, we at the end of this book, I hadn't seen Antonetta for a while, and I was just thinking, like, what are we doing with this character? Because there has to be something more, right? Like, are we going to see her and Kel reconcile? I don't really understand what her role is after her fiance is murdered. Um, and we finally see, and I also was thinking at the same time, who the hell is Prosper Beck? Right? Like, and we, at the very end of the book, we finally learn that those two threads are connected. Antonetta is Prosper Beck. And, she had been employing someone else to play the part of Prosper Beck when Kel meets Prosper Beck in the first book. It's a very good reveal. Thought it was very well done. Didn't see it coming. We have this great scene where Kel and Antonetta reckon with the fact that both of them have been hiding parts of their identity throughout their entire lives. And Kel is thinking, like, I'm in love with someone who doesn't exist. I'm in love. I was in love with this fake version of Antonetta who's not a real person. And he still feels the same things that he does for Antonetta, but he also recognizes that she doesn't, that he doesn't really know who she is really. And so I wanted them to reconcile, but I think it's realistic that they need some time to do that. I suspect we'll get that in the next book, but they do at least agree to sort of a professional relationship. They're going to work together to accomplish their goals of protecting the prince from all these traitors in the court who are now working with the Mamacy. So really good, really well set up character, I think. Up until I finished this book, I was not super happy with the way Antonetta was handled, just because I feel like I just wanted to know what was going on with her, and it was a really great payoff. A lot of these loose ends have been tied up, and now we kind of just have more, like, there's not a lot that I'm like desperate to find out about anymore. Now I'm just sort of like, okay, we did all this setup, and now the fireworks are going to happen, right? So we need to see how Connor is going to handle himself. I didn't really talk about Jolivet at all, but I am sort of like, what the hell is Jolivet's plan? Jolivet is the captain of the guard, who helped Kel with his espionage, but then betrayed him at the last second. Basically cut him loose, called him, like, he was like, oh, you're compromised, like, I can't help you, you're done, sorry buddy. Yeah, like, I want to see more of the Ragpicker King, because he is a great character. I find him really interesting, and he still kind of has just been like, he's been the boss in the shadows. He's been dispensing information, he's been coordinating our movements, but he still hasn't really, like, done much himself. So I want to see more of him. I'm really interested in Lynn traveling to the past land of Aram to go through more trials. I'm really interested in her and Aaron Benjida improving their relationship. I think that's going to be interesting. I want to see more of the world. I mean, there's so many countries that we've never been to because we've just been in Castellane this whole time. Oh, I didn't talk about Angelica. Angelica's reveal was brilliant in this book. How she had feelings for this pirate, but they couldn't be together because of her She was a princess and he was a pirate. So she hatched this plan to get married to, or to get engaged to Connor, but have him whisk her away secretly. And there was sort of this back and forth about, once she met Connor, does she want to stay with Connor, or does she want to go with the pirate? I thought she was a really cool character. Another example of a female character who is kind of put in this role of like assuming a feminine role. Her approach is different from Antonetta's. Hers is a bit more simple. Hers is basically like, let's just run away. Let's elope, right? I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. This was a great book. Much better than the first one. I think the first one had a bit too much setup and not enough payoff, but this one had a lot of payoff. I'm looking forward to the third one. I'll definitely read it. Let's see. So that was about half an hour of me just talking. I guess that'll probably be what my channel is. Again, just gonna do one take. Not gonna edit this shit, because I don't have time, and I would rather. I think people enjoy the scuffed content anyway. Okay. Well, thank you for listening, and see you next time. Peace.